Share, so let's see if it works.
Looks good on my screen.
Looks good. All right.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Grit Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. This is your host Bryce Moose, otherwise known as the Commissioner and the only two-timer. Joining me today is my co-host Jacob Kaplan. Jacob, how we doing?
Doing great, brother. Happy to talk about some football and dive into Jordan's team here.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Yeah, like you said, we're diving into Jordan's team here. This is number 3 in our team breakdowns. Jordan will be the third team that we're discussing. I think first to start, we should talk about Jordan's team of last year. The Timmonsville Troubadors finished 12-2 in the regular season, had the most points scored in Grit. Looked like the team to beat. Just came up a little short in the playoffs. Jordan got some pretty disappointing games down the stretch from a couple guys, one of which he just traded off, and we will get to that trade here shortly. Overall, Jordan has had a plethora of assets throughout last year and this year, or this offseason, and has continued to really improve on that. The biggest question for me is, what is Jordan's master plan here? Because he seems like he's playing this, both sides of the fence in either direction, and he's not really capitalizing on all this additional leverage and value that he has. Interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean he's got some young pieces, and he's been saying that he's going to go either tank or all in, and he's said he's leaning tank, but I don't know. It's interesting because he has a team that he can definitely go for. You have Pat Mahomes, and it's kind of hard to tank with Pat Mahomes regardless, right? He's going to score too many points for you. But getting rid of Davante Adams is pretty interesting. And I forget what the trade was exactly. Like you said,
I have
we'll
it pulled up.
But to trade off Davante Adams, unless you're moving up for a younger, better piece, is interesting. I think that when you do that, you're leaning more of the tank route. So we'll see where Jordan goes. He's got some more moves to make, but we'll see.
Yeah, the Davante Adams trade certainly was interesting, and we're going to talk about that when we get to our wide receivers for sure. But as you guys can see, today we have improved on the production here. Got the cameras rolling, got the screen share up. So in case you are wondering,
screaming in the mic.
No, it sounds way better today. I hope I'm not a church mouse over here. But as you can see here, we have keep trade cuts, team breakdowns up. If you plug in the league ID, you can do this. You don't have to be like commissioner or anything to do this, so you can look at it for yourself. But I have Jordan's roster pulled up here, and what I want to do is go position by position on here so you can see how keep trade cut is actually valuing the individual player. So if you can see, next to Pat Mahomes, it has him listed at QB1, but Kenny Pickett and Geno Smith right below, you can see their values as well in the overall landscape of quarterbacks. So again, before we start getting into Jordan's team, I really want to explain how keep trade cut works. And for all these, trade calculators and all these funny comments you guys have seen,
The simulator.
Yes, exactly. So this is what it means. Basically, keep trade cut is a crowd source of information. Everybody logging onto the site is prompted with a question of 3 similarly ranked players, and whether you would keep them, trade them, or cut them. And based on your answer, it affects the rankings after the daily inputs are kind of received across everyone who's logging onto the site. So all this really means is it's a just median value for where the industry in general values these players. Everyone's league will be different. Every individual user will be different. Do I think that Travis Kelce is the 28th overall player in Dynasty? Absolutely not. I don't want to have a 34-year-old on my team, and I don't want to have to give up more than a first to go and get him, right? But that's what the industry thinks. Now, certainly Xander was threatened with retirement and sold him off for cheap. But that's his decision. This isn't you should do this trade, you should not do this trade. It's just, if you ever have any questions about where somebody is valued in the market, this is where to go. Okay?
If you make your team better, you make your team better. Don't worry about somebody else's team.
Exactly.
It's fine to lose a trade as long as your team improves.
Yeah, and you guys have seen me lose a few trades on here. If you plugged my Bijan trade in the calculator, you'd have thought I was crazy. The whole point is that I'm not competing in the same market as the champions are. The only market I'm competing with is whoever else has a really bad team this year and is vying for that first overall pick. can I be the best tanker? And that's what I'm trying to accomplish so that I can go get that number one pick so that my team in 2024 and beyond is set up correctly. If you're afraid to lose...
Is that your achievement? Can we put that on record? You're going full tank again?
Absolutely full tank. I'm hoping for 0-14. I think my team has actually too much talent to lose every single game. I think I'll sneak out one or two somewhere, but the goal is to lose games. And if I have to continue to sell players to start Alec Pierce, then fine. But we will get there when we get there for sure. If you are trying to be a winning team and you are trading with another winning team, you may have the question of like, am I losing this trade? Am I losing this trade or winning this trade? Are they getting better? It doesn't really matter because as long as your team is improving, it gives you a better chance to win. And keep trade cut is just a way to just view it on paper. You can totally disagree with it, and it's perfectly fine. It's just this is where the value is stored.
Yeah,
all right.
It doesn't analyze your team specifically, like the depth that you have on your team. It's just analyzing that trade. So, again, if you're losing it, don't worry about it as long as it improves your team.
Right. And as you can see on the screen share here, if you look under quarterbacks, Jordan is ranked first out of 12 for four quarterbacks in the Grit League. However, if you disagree that Kenny Pickett and Geno Smith are two mediocre backups and you think that you have two quarterbacks combined that are better than Mahomes' value, well, it's the total value of those three players, right? So if you add up the 8,000, 2,800, and 2,600 numbers, that value will be first in the league. So like I trade for Anthony Richardson, I'm 11th in quarterbacks. It's because my backup is Sam Howell, right? It's all that means. Yeah, exactly. All right. Now that that's out of the way, and hopefully you guys have a better understanding, Jake, you ready to get into this?
Let's do it, man. I'm excited.
All right. So Jordan's team, as we've talked about, has maybe struggled to pick a direction. I think it's been a little confusing for everyone of what direction he really wants to go in. But we definitely have to start at the top with quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, he's 28 years old, 27 years old. He's going to be around for another decade plus. A really hard player to trade, especially in one QB, just because I have no idea what to offer you that's fair for him. I just sold Jordan Geno Smith, who will probably be his primary backup unless Kenny Pickett really takes a step forward. But anything out of those quarterbacks you really want to hit on?
No, not too much. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, obviously star. You saw what he did with the weapons last year. Still Dynasty consensus QB1 when Sky Moore or Justin Watson are like wide receiver 3, So, nothing much there. I mean, he's going to ride out Patrick Mahomes for as long as he can. Like you said, Geno Smith, great QB2. Honestly, if Geno turns it around again this year and does even better with JSN out there, I mean, it'd be another great asset for him to trade and get some more value because, again, Patrick Mahomes probably is not going anywhere on Jordan's team. He's probably on there. He's going to ride on Jordan's team. So, Kenny Pickett got reports that he's gained some muscle mass. We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see if he hits the sophomore slump. Nothing really big on Kenny, in my opinion. He could turn into this rushing QB. We've seen it. He has his moments, so we'll see.
Yeah, I personally am a big fan of the weapons that Kenny Pickett has with, George Pickens in year 2, Deontay Johnson in his prime, and then, of course, you can throw to Najee Harris and Fat Pat. Absolutely. I think the scouting report on Kenny Pickett is kind of what you saw, which is he is mobile. He doesn't have this rocket arm, but he is accurate and he's good over the middle of the field. Is he going to be the best quarterback in the NFL one day? No, he's not. But can he win you enough games to get you to the playoffs consistently? How does that relate to fantasy, I guess, is my biggest question. I don't think Kenny Pickett's ever going to be a terrible quarterback, but we'll just have to wait and see.
He has the rushing upside, so that's kind of what you go off with Kenny.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, it's hard to project, I guess, for Pat Mahomes, where he's going to finish other than, say, top 5, but is there any kind of threat to him in the next coming years, maybe, that Jordan should keep an eye out for?
QB-wise, I mean, the only player I would consider a threat is maybe your Jalen Hurts. because of the rushing upside and the weapons that he has as well. Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Goddard, now Swift, and I mean, if you want to go down the list of running backs, but that's the only one I would consider as a true threat. But again, dynasty-wise, not so much because rushing quarterbacks tend to get injured and stay out. But I don't know. Like you've seen Lamar fall in dynasty rankings, so I wouldn't consider anyone a threat really. Patrick is mobile. He's played through injuries. I think he has what, a 10-year deal at Kansas City,
something like that. Yeah.
So they're going to continue to give him these opportunities to just sling the ball. So no real threats from anybody else.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I was kind of thinking of is that Andy Reid's been coaching a long time. What happens when he decides to hang it up?
Right.
Or does he just want to, as long as Pat is in Kansas City, I'm going to be the head coach sort of thing?
Yeah, maybe
Other thing
Pat makes it too easy for him.
Yeah, I really think he does. I mean, I can't imagine a coaching job being too much easier than that, especially being like an offensive coach, how he is. But the other thing, too, is Kelsey eventually will retire. I don't know if that's next year. I don't know, when that could be. But he's always had that security blanket, and I would say widely considered the best tight end to ever play the game at this point. Certainly most offensively productive. So what does that look like when he decides to move on? But anytime soon, I don't think there's any threat to Pat being at least a top 3 dynasty quarterback, even with like a disaster season.
Yep,
Agree. All right. Before we move on from quarterback, though, I do want to mention the Anthony Richardson trade that I pulled off about 48 hours ago. So for those watching, I received Anthony Richardson in return for Will's 2024 first and Geno Smith. I thought this trade was a win-win for both sides because Jordan needed a reliable backup. Like, as long as Geno is healthy, I mean, his weekly projection is going to be probably a top, 12 quarterback in the league, somewhere around that Kirk Cousins tier. And for me, it was like, I want to bet on the young guy. Again, Anthony Richardson turned 21 after the draft, like in May. I mean, this guy is going to play his entire rookie season at 21 years old, and even if he sucks, it's like he's still going to be 22 and starting for the Colts next year at, plays his entire sophomore season at 22. So it's just a bet on the upside long term, and obviously with his freakish abilities, I thought it made a lot of sense for me. That late first in 2024 was
whose first was it?
It was Will's.
Okay.
So to me, if Will has the season that I kind of expect him to have, I just don't think that pick is going to land me Caleb Williams. And if it's Drake May or Anthony Richardson, I'm going to shoot for the upside here, at least while I can. So it was a trade I was very happy to get done. And I think for Jordan specifically, I think it made a lot of sense too.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it makes a lot of sense. He gains a first and gets Geno as a backup, a more reliable backup than Anthony Richardson or Kenny Pickett. So,
yep.
Again, it makes a lot of sense. Like we mentioned earlier, you lost the trade, I think maybe by a couple thousand trade value points or whatever, but it improves your team. You have a young possible star who could be this reborn Cam Newton, but faster. And you're going to go for it while you can get that late first value. I think it made a lot of sense for both sides and worked out. Geno's going to be good. Geno's going to have a good year.
Yeah, and if you've learned anything from playing fantasy football these last couple of years, is if you don't have a mobile quarterback, you don't have that top 5 QB ceiling. Like all these guys that, like, we've seen Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, Mahomes runs, like all of these guys. You have to have the mobility to really have the ceiling. I'm not going to sit here and say Anthony Richardson is going to figure this thing out from day one, but I think he has the potential, and that's something that I was willing to bet on.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to running backs. Let me see if I can pull this screen share down a little bit here. Okay. So moving on to running back, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me is after a couple of these trades, Jordan really only has one guy valued in the top 25 running backs on Keep Trade Cut, and that would be Zach Charbonnet, the rookie, who looked really good last night in the preseason game. Overall thoughts on Jordan's running back room?
It's it's split up kind of between like 3, 4 teams, right? Because he has Charbonnet at the top, who's going to be a great rookie, but you don't know the situation there, right? You don't know what
Yep.
Ken Walker and him are going to do. Are they just going to completely bench Charbonnet, or are they going to let him trade off? Then you have the New Orleans running backs are all in Jordan's roster, right? Except for possibly Kareem Hunt, right? We all think Kareem Hunt might go there, but Kendre, Jamal Williams, Alvin Kamara. Keep trade cut values Kendre above Alvin right now. I'd still value Alvin above Kendre in my opinion.
I agree with you.
Once Kamara's back, he's a top back in the league. He's going to get those pass catching abilities. I like his running backs. We'll see about Pacheco. He's one of those guys that you never really know where he's going to go. I had said to Jordan last year, why not trade Pacheco while you can? He's got this massive output of fantasy points right now. He's a 6th, 7th round running back. He looks good. He runs hard. But he's already dealing with injuries. He had a shoulder surgery, I think.
Yep.
His longevity, I'm just not sure. So we'll see there. But I like his group. I wish he had a little bit more depth as far as teams. But Devin Singletary could be a sleeper, just depending on Dameon Pierce and what they decide to do there in Houston.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing I wanted to highlight with Alvin Kamara, since we're kind of on that, is, we see him at RB34 overall. And if you're wondering why that is, it's just because he got a 3-game suspension to start the season. They drafted a rookie running back in the 3rd round. They signed Jamal Williams. So the big question is, where does Kamara's touchdown ceiling come from, right? We saw him have a very unproductive season last year. I still think he has that talent in him. I just don't know if he has the that kind of top 5 running back stuff that he's shown throughout his career. And again, new coaching staff and everything. I don't know where to value him, and I think that's why he's here at RB34, is because I think people straight up would rather have Pacheco at this point. Now, speaking of Charbonnet, I like Zach Charbonnet a lot. He was definitely somebody who I wanted to draft back when we were doing the rookie draft. I thought he looked really good again last night. I mean, we've been watching him since our Michigan days, right?
Yeah, former Wolverine, baby.
Yeah, former Wolverine. I mean, he was really good at UCLA. This guy actually caught more passes in college than Bijan did, just on a raw volume. So for everyone saying Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs are, these, 2 great pass catchers, I think Charbonnet is right in that conversation too. Very similar to a James Conner. He can do a little bit of everything. I think he's just he's the young and explosive version. So I like him a lot. Kendre Miller, I think, is valued way too high. This is a guy who missed 90% of training camp with an undisclosed injury. Jamal Williams is in front of him to take goal line stuff. Kamara's going to come back from the suspension. They've been floating around signing Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
I don't know what year 1 looks like for him. And we saw what happened to Isaiah Spiller's value last year, where you don't really play a lot, and then all of a sudden it's just nobody wants to even give you a 3rd for him. Kendre Miller was the youngest player in this draft class, for whatever it's worth. I don't know if I see it happening year 1.
Yeah, and I think if that becomes apparent, Kendre's not going to be the guy at all. I don't know. I feel like Jordan's in the perfect situation with this New Orleans running back committee. He's got 3 of the pieces, so depending on what happens with that, we'll see. But you don't want to see happen what happened to him last year, where he had Jamal Williams and Swift, right?
Yeah.
He could have traded Swift for maybe a decent piece and get some more points from that player, but held on to Swift and let Jamal get him these 20-point games, 2 touchdown games. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think Jordan should make a move with one of them. Again, he's in the perfect position with this New Orleans running back committee.
Yeah, I agree. And then, the other approach you could take would be to package all 3 and basically just tell somebody, hey, I'll give you the whole Saints backfield. Yeah. That's a trade I think that's really appealing. That's a fun trade to kind of try and make. But But yeah, I'm with you. I like his running back room. I don't think he's done. I do think he's going to make one more move at least before the season starts for the running back room. Pacheco being the last guy here we probably should highlight. As a rookie, had 800 yards and 7 touchdowns, only caught, I think, 8 passes. The playoffs were where he really shined. And, the 3 games, the Super Bowl game, I mean, he looked like one of the stars of the league. I guess the question is this just a product of the offense? Did he just run hot? Everyone's scheming against Mahomes and just he has nothing but free room to roam. But, Clyde is still there. Jerick McKinnon is still there.
Crowded.
Deneric Prince, little name that throw in the back of your mind. Yeah.
He's popping up. Having a good training camp so far.
Yeah, I don't really know what to do with Pacheco. The Chiefs' Twitter account's been posting him catching passes, trying to push this narrative that he's some receiving back. He's never done it. You can look back at his college stats. He's never done it.
Rutgers versus Michigan, 200 yards.
I know. He was a star at Rutgers. He really was. I'm a fan of his talent, and I think if he was on a different team with like a sort of this like guaranteed workload, I think we'd be really excited about him. It's just like with the Chiefs, like I never know what to make of these other guys. We know it's Mahomes and Kelsey, but then like what else do you do? And especially in like a managed format where you have to decide like who is playing every single week, I think it just makes it difficult.
Yeah, I mean we've seen what happened to CEH, and Grant traded a first for him, but we've seen what's happened there. He had a decent output and had this appeal of being a pass catching back, and now his dynasty value has just tanked. It's plummeted from where it was because he was the RB1 and now he's probably RB3 or 4. So I don't know. It would be interesting. If I were Jordan, I would trade him, but we'll see. We'll see what Jordan does there.
Yeah, and then before we move on to receiver, do want to highlight Ty Chandler, who looked great last night.
I do. I want to talk about Ty Chandler. I mean, how many first half touches did he get? 30? 25?
He had 4 catches and 9 carries, so 13 touches and a half of preseason when you're trying to play like 6 different running backs is like insane. So they have been, for those unaware, the backup job behind Alex Madison is totally up for grabs, and they basically said like it's Ty Chandler or Dwayne McBride, whoever wins the job. Well, Dwayne McBride ran straight into his offensive lineman on his first carry, was benched for the entire first half. Second half kickoff, ran straight into another player, got destroyed on the kickoff. Yeah. I think he got 3 carries the rest of the game. Like, to me, like Ty Chandler already just locked this thing up as the true backup to Madison. Maybe for a Grant and Jordan deal potentially if Grant wants a backup, or maybe if Jordan wants Madison to kind of lock up 2 backfields here. I think that could be something worth looking at.
Smart.
Yeah.
I also want to highlight Evan Hull.
Evan Hull.
Great Northwestern player, had a couple 100 yards against Ohio State. Rainy game, nonetheless, but still did it against a top team in college. I forget what round he was drafted in, but the Indianapolis Colts running back situation is confusing. Is Jonathan Taylor going to get traded? Is he not? I think if he isn't going to get traded, this is your perfect time to get some value on Evan Hull to a Blake, maybe, if Blake wants to give Jordan a second or a third or something for that insurance. But he's a solid runner. He definitely has capability to run hard, get some touches. So we'll see. We've seen what Indianapolis does with their running backs. They get Nyheim Hines some touches, so that they're not afraid to give the depth, the opportunity there.
And I think the reason that conversation is important is because of Anthony Richardson, we know they're going to want to run the ball a lot. And the guy who can kind of come in and make something happen, a lot of goal line opportunities too, I would think, a lot of short yardage stuff. So there's definitely an opportunity for Evan Hull. The Colts do play their first preseason game tonight, and I think this is one I would be like very, very tuned into if I was Blake and Jordan, because if Deion Jackson's like clearly ahead of Evan Hull, like that might be a player worth trying to get.
Right.
Whoever wins that backup job, and again, Zach Moss is out for 6 weeks with a broken arm, who was the primary backup, but he's going to miss into the regular season, it sounds like.
Yeah, he might. I think the latest report is he would be back like week 1.
Yeah.
He'll be ready to go, but we'll see.
Yeah, and then with everything going on with Jonathan Taylor and his holdout and demanding a trade, I don't know who is starting for this team week 1 at running back, right?
Yeah.
If you can have the crystal ball and get this thing right, there's definitely a ton of value to be had, a ton of trade advantages, but that is totally a gamble. I don't feel good about any of these guys, projecting any of them, or really who's going to be taking that first snap under Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on to receiver. So Jordan does have a loaded receiver room, and he did just make a big trade to get rid of one of his pieces, which we will talk about here in a second. I think the main thing I wanted to highlight is just based on value alone, we have 2 guys who are ranked in, top 10 in receiver, and then Judy kind of in that middle tier, and then there's a bunch of guys who are like maybe flex options. So this is what I mean when I say Jordan needs to decide what he wants to do, right?
Yeah.
If you want to win now, you have a bunch of guys who can help a ton of teams, right? Jerry Jeudy, you could sell for a pretty good amount, I would think, right now. You have all of these first-round picks. Everything you want to go get Jamar Chase or give Austin some stupid offer for Justin Jefferson, like you have the ammo to do it. It's just about like what do you think is best for your team. I know Jordan is like me, a huge fan of the draft, wants to take these young guys, but coming in third and second every season is not going to be fun, and he definitely has a team to be right there with Will, if not better than Will this year. So, that's where I wanted to start. So Chris Olave at the top. You watched him a ton in college.
I did.
I was low on him coming out. I was low. Yeah. First off, I'll let you take the floor with Olave. What do you like about him?
Dude, he's a great route runner. He's got the speed, and you just never want to pass up on one of these Ohio State stars right now. And unfortunately for both of us, we did. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yep.
Give credit where credit's due. Jordan took Olave, and I took Sky Moore 2 picks ahead of him, and then you took Jameson Williams, the pick right before Chris. So,
yep.
I don't know, but to highlight on Chris Olave, he got a QB upgrade, right? It's probably the best QB he's had so far in the NFL. It's a trade up, so we'll see what happens there. You hope that maybe Carr just highlights him consistently. We've seen what Carr does with tight ends. He likes his tight ends, but he liked Devontae Adams too. And he liked Hunter Renfrow. So we'll see. He definitely likes to spread the ball around, but I think Chris Olave is going to have a good season. It's going to be better than it was last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's something about this Saints offense that Jordan just really loves because he has like literally every single starter for this offense. I guess for me, it's a little confusing what this whole Michael Thomas situation is. If you listen to pure Saints reporting and everything, it sounds like he looks as healthy he has in 2 full seasons. I mean, we've seen him play 3 games, I believe, since like Donald Trump was in office. Like it's been a long time. I mean, we'll have to wait and see with him. Obviously, the injuries are huge, but I do like the Derek Carr addition. I think the Saints offense is going to throw the ball around a lot, and that's kind of why I liked it for Kamara, but we're going to have to see him out there, and obviously he's going to have to get the snaps to, actually get the fantasy points. The other side of this thing other side of Jordan's receiving room is Tyreek Hill. Tyreek almost had 2,000 yards last season, just monster game after monster game. He was somebody who was kind of valued lower in Dynasty in our startup last year, just because of the whole Tua situation. No one really knew how to feel about him. Can Tua throw it deep? Is Tyreek a product of Pat? All these questions. Turns out Tyreek's just a superstar.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Tyreek has the speed. He's going to get open. He's going to open up the offense. So it helped out Waddle. I think Waddle helped out Tyreek. But again, there was all this narrative about Tua not being able to throw the deep ball, and that did not hurt Tyreek at all. I think he's valued at the right spot. I mean, what he's coming up on 30, but still produces big numbers, gets you the big 30-point games. So he's got a great piece. Honestly, maybe I'd put Tyreek above Olave, but I think that's just ageism. Why he's wide receiver 10 and not wide receiver 8. But Tyreek's going to have a good season. I think the Dolphins' offense is going to be great. So they're going to spread the ball around. They're going to open it up. It'll be more of like a spread offense, I feel like, especially with A-Chain. So I think he might have a better year than last year. Maybe not as many yards, but he's going to have a good season.
My biggest question with this Dolphins offense is we saw the last 4 weeks of the season, teams basically playing the one high safety. The Dolphins offense did nothing. They lost 4 games to end the season. Have they been figured out? Because they didn't do anything to upgrade that kind of third target, and it was basically just Waddle and Tyreek, and they either bust a play open or the Dolphins are punting. I'm not so sure how I feel about this offense right now because, again, they lost Gesicki, so you're looking at Durham Smythe as tight end 1. Looks like a revolving door there. And then the third receiver, I mean, this is Robbie Chosen, Cedric Wilson. Braxton Berrios, right.
I'm a Robbie truther, so I think he's going to help.
He might, but one of these...
He's not getting any slower, man. He's not getting any slower.
But I think there's a lot of opportunity for whoever that third guy in the Dolphins offense is to really have a nice season. Yeah. And maybe Devon A-Chain. We will get to him on a different show, but he could be somebody worth keeping an eye on too.
He's a favorite of mine, so I'll keep my mouth shut for the time being.
Yeah.
Jonah.
All right, so speaking of the one trade that did just occur with Jordan trading away a big-time name at receiver, Jordan sold Devontae Adams to Blake, I believe that was Monday. It was Devontae Adams in a third-rounder for Michael Gallup, a 2024 second from Matt, and a 2024 first from Jonah. First off, what do you think about the trade? Do you think it was fair? Makes sense?
I think it was, I don't know, I think Jordan, just depending on his direction, I think he kind of lost the trade. It just kind of depends on what you think Michael Gallup's going to do this year. I think he'll have an okay season. It's not going to be what Devontae could give you, but again, it's Jimmy Garoppolo in Las Vegas. So maybe Jordan got decent value on it. Maybe Michael Gallup has that upside, but I did just get a breaking news report that Devontae did suffer an injury in training camp. I think he walked off the field on his own, but I think he might have hurt his ribs, something like that, but we'll see. He's an older guy.
Yeah, shut him down.
So maybe we'll see, but I don't know. I think Devontae got a downgrade in quarterback. So, and he lost the value of having Darren Waller as a help. And Josh Jacobs might sit out. So maybe it's a smart move by Jordan to just completely avoid that Las Vegas offense. But we'll see. I think he got Michael Gallup could be good. We'll see what happens there in Dallas.
Yeah, I thought this trade was a good trade for Blake's team. If Blake's trying to win, getting Devontae Adams for, not too steep of a price, I think makes a lot of sense. I mean, again, this guy's coming off a 1,600-yard season, looking as good as ever. I pulled up his stats earlier. I don't want to mess with the tab just so the thing doesn't shut us off here, but statistically, that was the most targets, the most catches, the most yards he'd ever had in a season. That's including the Aaron Rodgers season. Yeah. Derek Carr loved him. College quarterback, all that stuff, right? It all, showed to come through and everything. So we'll see about Jimmy Garoppolo. I do think this is a good gamble from Blake. And for Jordan, just de-risking. He just picking up first-rounders that are always going to have value. You don't have to worry about the whole age cliff and watch Jimmy G and hope Devontae's doing something. I totally get that side of it because he does have enough receivers to start for him. I do think this is setting up a pretty big move, and we will see when he decides to do that.
Yeah, and he did get a first for Devontae, right?
Yes, he did.
So again, Jordan has all these firsts. I think he really has an easy opportunity to go after a wide receiver that in trade for give somebody a trade that they can't refuse almost, right? Like someone who's on the edge of, hey, I might be tanking, I might be going for it, that he can give them a trade where it's like, go ahead and tank. Like, take these first.
I'm going to highlight that on the screen real quick. 11 first and second rounders over the next 2 seasons. Two seasons. That's not 3, 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's insane.
With this roster. My question is, what the hell is he going to do with it?
Yeah.
Because you can't just sit on this talent, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you lose a couple trades, Jordan? Be good for the league.
Be good for the league. Lose some trades. I don't know. I've said this. I don't think there's any value in holding a bunch of 2025 first right now. It's definitely something that you can get back.
Yes.
So I would not be afraid to just ship off all of those for a great wide receiver and still have some play in this 2024 class that could possibly give him Caleb, Brock Bowers, and Marvin Harrison, depending on where he falls, right? But 2024 is a class that you want to have loaded picks in, but if you want to go for it, go for it.
Yeah, and just to recap, Jordan does have 4 2024 first-rounders. Xander's, actually, let me pull it back up here. His own, Will's, Jonah's, and Xander's. So Jordan holding his own first and Will's first is like almost certainly 2 of the last 3 picks.
Right.
Unless
Jordan wants to tank.
Yeah, unless he does, right? And I've told him, I will sell Bijan to him if he's offering me 3 or 4 of those firsts. I will do it. I will reset everything.
Because how many do you have right now? You have 4 as well?
No, I have 2 in 2024 now. Okay. I've sold 2 of them pretty recently, but look, I never see him taking 4 players with those picks. Like, I think he's going to make a move eventually. It's just all about timing for him. But with the landscape of the league, if Jordan wants to continue to stockpile picks, make the playoffs, and hope his team gets hot, you can't really blame him, because if everyone wants to win and he can just keep loading up young guys, there's nothing really stopping him from doing it.
Yeah.
All right.
And
so
before we move on, I want to talk about a couple more of the wide receivers. Allen Lazard, for one. This guy has been a favorite of Aaron Rodgers and brought him over from Green Bay, and now is going to be in this high-powered offense, more power than Aaron Rodgers has had in the last couple of years, in my opinion. So he's going to be a sleeper pick. I forget what his stats were, but he had a decent season last year. I think he's going to have a great year this year.
I do like Allen Lazard. I never know how to value him, and he's just not somebody who's that talented. He's a friend of Aaron Rodgers, who's just a big body, and he can catch the high point the football, everything like that. The Jets have just a lot of offensive talent. The Packers didn't have that last year, and he was the veteran receiver in the room. How does that look transitioning to the Jets? We'll have to see.
Yeah, it depends. Like, if Corey Davis comes back and produces the same amount that he did last year, then Allen Lazard's profit kind of tanks, right? But if he can come in and take over that Corey Davis role, because Aaron loves a friend, so he could force feed him the ball and get some good targets.
Absolutely. And then Terrace Marshall is the other one we should highlight, who for a stretch there looked like he could be the number 1 for the Panthers to open the season. Panthers went out and signed Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Hayden Hurst, obviously drafted Bryce Young. So this offense is going to be totally just reborn. Sign Miles Sanders. This is just a totally new offense. I like Terrace Marshall as a player, but he's somebody who has cratered in value ever since the draft, ever since free agency, really. Just because nobody knows what to do with him. Is he even somebody who's like a valuable bench piece, or is he just one of these guys at the end of your roster at this point?
Yeah, I think Jordan's in a position with Terrace where it's might as well just hold on to him. See what happens. If he falls off and is a complete zero at the end of the season, then so be it. I don't think Jordan's going to get any crazy value on it right now to where it's like, oh, I should have traded him, right? Like, what would you give for Terrace right now? An early third?
Nothing more than a third.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think last year I would have given him any second, for a stretch there, just because he looked like he could be,
Yeah, before Mingo and Hurst.
Yeah, Jonathan Mingo, I should mention him too. Absolutely. All right, so Jordan's receiver rank is actually 5th out of 12. He has 3 guys he's going to be playing every week, and we'll see about Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is one player I did want to highlight real quick because we didn't talk about him. But
Sure.
when you talk about player values and like how the market views different guys, Jerry Jeudy is like the prime example where last year everyone expected this Jerry Jeudy breakout. It didn't really happen for the first half of the season. He really came on at the end of the year, ended with like 950 yards and like 7 touchdowns or something. Had like a fine close to the season, but everyone's like not sure if he's this superstar. But now if you go to redraft, Jerry Jeudy's going in the range where people expect the breakout, right? Yeah. For Jerry Jeudy to maintain this value, he's really going to have that 1,200-yard, 10-touchdown season, or if not, he's going to continue to lose value just by the nature of being, a year 3 player that hasn't really proved it.
Yeah. He's one of those polarizing players, right? You either love him or you hate him. I think his footwork is phenomenal. It's top in the NFL, but it's just can he get on board with Russell? That's still something that remains to be seen. I think it's possible. I think he'll have a great season, but I think Courtland Sutton could sneak up and have a better season than him. It just depends on who Russell really feels like giving the ball to.
Yeah, and with these Broncos training camp injuries to KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick,
R.I.P.
the door is wide open for Jerry Jeudy to play 90% of the snaps. I mean, Marvin Mims is going to be in the slot, Courtland Sutton on the outside, and of course Dulcich should tight end, but
mine.
Yours, yeah, and mine, Marvin Mims. But Jerry Jeudy's going to have all the opportunity in the world. He could be a guy that we look at this in 12 months and say, yeah, he's probably a top 12 dynasty receiver, or it could be somebody we're saying like, maybe I'll give you a early second. Yeah, like I think his value could go anywhere, and he seems like a very kind of risky asset that might not, on the face value, appear that risky. But definitely did want to highlight him.
Yeah, your hope is that it's the same thing as what Russell had in Seattle, this kind of DK Metcalf and Lockett tandem. But I think they're both talented. I think Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, and Mims are all talented. So there's no excuse from Russell. So we'll see.
And finally, we're going to talk about the tight end room here. Jordan's tight end room ranks 1st out of 12th, and I think it's by like a considerable margin, like a very long shot. He has 5 guys. Yeah, all 5 of his guys in the top 24 of tight end value, 4 guys in the top 20. All of these guys are going to be contributors this season for their individual teams. I like all 5 of them this year. But it's a managed league. It's a 1 tight end league. And unless you're playing somebody in the flex, you can only play 1. And it's very clear who that 1 is going to be. So I don't know what Jordan is doing here.
Jelani Woods, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to play Kyle Pitts probably every single week unless Kyle Pitts falls off. And maybe that's something he holds on to. But I think Kyle Pitts is due for a great season. First season over 1,000 yards. Second season dealt with injury and quarterback change. Mariota much more of a running quarterback than pure pocket passer. I think Ritter's going to be great. I think he's going to do a lot more checkdowns, kind of similar to the idea of what Jordan Love might do in Green Bay. These new guys, I think that they love their tight ends. They're always a safety net for him, and I think Kyle Pitts is a great safety net for Ritter. But yeah, I think the Falcons are going to have a great offense. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan, just those key players are going to open things up. So I think Ritter's going to have a great season with Kyle Pitts and Drake London. I think they're both going to have a good season. I think Kyle Pitts probably do 850, 900, and a couple touchdowns, which is definitely top value tight end talent.
Do you agree with him being tight end 2, and more specifically over 7,000 in the ranking here? I mean, that's above
tight end 3.
Is he tight end 3?
Yeah,
I believe he's tight end 2.
Mark Andrews tight end 2.
Is he?
I think so.
No, I think Pitts is tight end 2.
Shows tight end 3 on my screen, but nonetheless, yeah, I do, because I don't know another rookie that did what he did in his first year, and yeah, he was the only receiver at that time, right? But I mean, he's very talented. He was what pick was he? Top 4?
I think he was,
Number 4?
I believe he was the 5th overall pick.
5th overall pick, right? So, I mean, all the scouts thought he was worth that spot. So, yeah, I do think so. I think he's going to continue to get these looks. I don't know. I mean, everyone's low on him because he didn't have more than 4 touchdowns his rookie season, right? But he had over 1,000 yards, and then he dealt with injury. So, I don't know. I think he's definitely top 5 tight end. I don't know who else you'd really want to put in front of him other than Dolchich or Pat Freiermuth.
No, and I think Hawkinson's production and everything is at least comparable. Now, Pitts is 4 years younger and has athleticism that TJ Hawkinson dreams of, but we got to see it from him. And again, I think Kyle Pitts, all these Falcons guys, is kind of going to be the same conversation. If Ritter is good, or if he's not, next year is going to look a lot different for this Falcons offense, where they really can take a big step forward, I think. I don't know what I would be willing to pay for Kyle Pitts. I think he's just...
Would you be willing to sell Josh Jacobs and a first for Kyle Pitts?
Yeah. Yeah, I would. Because Josh Jacobs' value has decreased significantly. I wanted to pull up the tight end and wide receiver rankings here, just to scroll down. But let's see where Kyle Pitts is. So he's actually right above Cooper Kupp and Jordan Addison right here. And again, you guys can feel free to disagree. Yeah, feel free to disagree with these rankings, but like purely pass catchers, this is kind of how it all stacks up. What I think is really interesting here is that Kyle Pitts has kind of maintained this without really proving he's some special talent yet. Like we saw what he did at Florida, yes. Saw his athleticism, yes. When it comes to NFL production, I still think we're waiting to kind of see him take that big leap. But
yeah, we'll see how he bounces back from the ACL.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to do our riser, faller, and sleeper off of Jordan's roster?
I would love to. So let me see here. My riser is going to be Luke Musgraves. Having a great camp so far. 2nd round tight end, athletic, big, fast. And again, is in this situation with Jordan Love where they added a bunch of assets, right? Luke Musgraves, Jaden Reed. They have Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. So I think the opportunity is there, and he's going to be a great safety net for Jordan Love. I think he's due for a good season.
He is the same one I had selected as well. Luke Musgrave is somebody with just freakish talent. We didn't get to see him at the Combine, but he is somebody who really... Actually, no, we did see him. It was Kincaid we didn't see at the Combine.
Right.
Musgrave is somebody in college who made that entire Oregon State offense work. If you guys remember the top 10 Oregon State team, Luke Musgrave was the centerpiece of everything that they did. Looks great out there. He looks like he's just born to catch, footballs for 15 years. Yeah, he's an impressive guy to watch. But again, I don't know what Jordan's going to do with him. Is he just going to sit on his bench and let this guy retire, or is he going to make a move? Everybody in the league wants him. Yeah. So before we move on from the overall conversation here, I think Jordan has a lot of pieces that a lot of the teams without youth and assets should go after. Like, could Grant get a Luke Musgrave just to kind of stash and see what you got? Alec
Kraft on his team. Yeah.
Well, Alec's sitting here starting Mike Gesicki right now. I don't think he's going to go into the season like that. But again, well, I guess he has Kincaid. He had Kincaid in the flex when I looked. But I think like a lot of these teams could use a young tight end just to kind of wait and see, as well as some of these receivers. Like if you want to take a shot on Michael Thomas, I don't think Jordan's going to have any feelings parting ways with him. So definitely some options there.
And then, where do we go? Riser, faller. My faller was going to be Terrace Marshall. Not because I don't think he's talented, but just because of the weapons that have been added in Carolina, right? It looked like Panthers were going to get Bryce Young, and it was going to be just Terrace. DJ Chark and Thielen, and you felt good about Terrace, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now they added Jonathan Mingo and Hayden Hurst is there. It's going to be tough for him to evolve, and especially from the training camp reports so far, it's been DJ Chark and Jonathan Mingo and Hayden Hurst. So I think Terrace is already starting to get lost in the mix, which kind of sucks because I think he's a great player, but faller on my list.
Yeah, the faller for me is going to be Kendre Miller. No issue with Kendre Miller's talent, but when you miss all the camp as a 21-year-old rookie and you're behind Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams, who have been so great for so long in this league, I just don't see how you get a lot of touches. Now we see them floating stuff with signing Kareem Hunt. We already know they brought in Derek Carr, and they have all these weapons, Raheed Shaheed and Chris Olave, Michael Thomas. Is there enough for him there to matter at all in fantasy football in year one? I'm just not sure. I think that's becoming more clear day in and day out. So he would be my faller.
Yeah, I think it's just weird that the Saints are even shopping for Kareem Hunt, right? Why even shop for him if you just drafted this Kendre Miller and you have Jamal Williams, right? So it's a little worrisome, but yeah, I would agree. Faller.
Pulling up running back
sleeper
rankings here. Yeah, sleeper, somebody on this team who we might not be talking about now, but we will be talking about in season or maybe next season.
That for me, that is going to be Jelani Woods. He's this guy who is a massive body. I forget his size, but he is absolutely huge and kind of just has these glue hands, right? Now, again, I'm big on this young quarterbacks with safety nets, and I think that is going to be exactly what Jelani is for Anthony Richardson. He's going to need these tight ends that undercut the defense, and it's an easy target for him to get open. He is an easy target. He's huge. And he showed that he was capable with Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan got him the ball when he was the tight end too in Indianapolis. So I'm looking forward to see what Jelani Woods does this season. I think he could get Jordan some good value in a trade later on.
I like that a lot. Mine was just my sleeper here is going to be Ty Chandler. Again, Alex Madison's kind of been given this role. We don't know how good he's going to be, how he can maintain his health. Ty Chandler showed me a lot last night. Looked good catching the ball too, which I think is big, especially when you play with Kirk Cousins and everything that Jefferson and Hawkinson do down the field. I think having somebody close to the line of scrimmage, just like a pass-catching back, makes a lot of sense for them. And look, if they're comfortable playing him, he could get you legitimate value every single week. I think that's possible.
I like it. It's good.
I like it too. All right, to close today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the whole, I mentioned it earlier, but competing in different markets and really what that looks like. So to start, right, you have your teams that are going for it. You're all in. I want to win the championship this year, and no matter what, I'm not tanking. If I have a player gets hurt, I'm going to sell him off, get something now. You have that market. You have your, I'm going to be in the middle of the range of teams, and things break my way, great. I can make some moves and maybe compete, or I can hope to make the playoffs and maybe get lucky, win some games. And then you have your teams that are comfortable losing. Now, your teams that are comfortable losing are competing against themselves, right? I don't care if I lose in the regular season to another team. I don't care if my player gets 1 point or 30 points. As long as I lose the game, helps me get closer to my draft picks. All I'm trying to do is accomplish youth, trade off old guys, and get value while I can, while continuing to maintain the roster that I have, just so I'm not 100% picks, so that when my team does sort of come together, I can compete. If I can be the best tanker, I'm winning in that aspect, so that makes my rise to the top of this league a little easier. I've lost a couple trades relatively on purpose because I wanted to show, how I value things differently, and I'm not afraid to lose a trade if I think it helps me win my league.
Get that, Marvin Harrison Jr. 101.
Yeah, I know it might sound crazy, but when you look ahead to this year's draft, there's not a lot of running backs that we value highly, right? Bijan was going to be the best prospect. Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be the best prospect that we were going to see for a while until Nick Singleton. So until we get there, I needed to have a running back I felt good about. So it was either I'm going to be tanking or I'm not at all right now. Could I just wait on running backs, or could I take Bijan, hope he can kind of stay healthy and relevant for a year or two until my team is fully ready to go? So that's kind of why I did it. But if no one else is competing with me in the tanking market, Jonah's really had tried to do it last year a little bit. You tried to do it last year. Your team was a little bit more set up than mine.
These guys that I had. So.
Yeah, your team was more set up than mine to kind of make that push.
Yeah.
Right? So talk to me about when you knew it was time to kind of push your chips in.
I figured it was time to push my chips in when I had A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and CeeDee Lamb. I knew that I had to move one of those guys, and I was only looking at Miles Sanders at the time, right? Mm-hmm. And Miles Sanders got, from what we can assume, is a much better situation than what he was in Philadelphia. Philadelphia uses 3 running backs. I think whether it's Miles Sanders or DeAndre Swift, they're going to use Kenny, Penny, and
Boston Scott.
Swift, and Boston Scott might get some looks. So I think it's a better situation for him, and I really like it. I've seen what Carolina running backs have done, right? Mike Davis, Deontay Foreman, they're not the best. You've seen what happens when they go on to another team. But when they're at Carolina and just get this force-fed and checkdowns, they produce some good fantasy points. So I figured might as well go for it. I got some firsts to get rid of, and maybe just convince some people to give me some top talent. So got rid of CD, got T. Higgins and McCaffrey. Got rid of Christian Watson as well.
Yeah, and what do you kind of look for when you get to the point as the season begins? Like, how comfortable are you not having your roster kind of squared away right now? Obviously, we don't have to set our lineups tomorrow or anything like that.
Yeah.
How comfortable are you having like a hole on your roster, knowing you need to make a trade versus, hey, I can wait it out forever until that week 1 is here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can go even further than week 1, right? So, like Austin, for instance, he's starting A.J. Dillon, and regardless if he feels good about that or not, like we've said, it's just probably not going to be a piece that wins you a championship. But he can wait until week 4, week 5. Hopefully he gets a win or 2 under his belt, and then can make a bigger push to say, okay, here's what we see in the market. Here's what guys have gone up, what guys have gone down. And, if Jordan Addison's playing well, get rid of him and get another, like, wide receiver 1 or something. But week 4, I think, is kind of your cutoff because you don't want to lose any more games to where you get to the playoff stretch and you're like, okay, I really have to win this game on, like, week, maybe 12, week 10. You don't want to have those, like, must-win situations. You want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So week 4 is probably your cutoff.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think a lot of these teams are going to have to make moves early in the season. Like, for me, I'm never worried about setting my lineup right now. And besides, like, this league has enough trades going on. You can always find a trade partner, like, every single day. Somebody's willing to make a trade. Catch Blake at the right time, you might get a free deal. So,
the NyQuil Blake.
Yeah, so I'm pulling up this trade. I meant to have this up earlier, and I tabbed off of it. But this was a trade I pulled up in this calculator just to see what the value was looking like. I think this is a trade that makes sense for both teams. Jordan has 1 million picks to sell. Grant has no picks. If Grant isn't trying to win the championship, he could sell Eckler for a first and a second. Feel good about it, right?
Throw Madison in there.
Throw Madison in there?
Yeah.
From Grant?
Yeah.
Okay. Madison and Eckler, or just
Yeah, Madison and Eckler, and then see what's down below. What do they suggest as of right now? C.J. Stroud? Could be.
Yeah.
Something around that 4,000.
Sam Laporta. Well, I was going to say, if we did...
what if he adds in Musgraves? I don't know if that's appealing to Grant, but...
well, you could do this. If you put just straight up 2 firsts.
It seems like a win-win in my book, if Grant wants to go that direction. But
yeah, if Jordan was willing to give him Xander and his own first, right? Doesn't he have Grant's first? So if Grant wants to take if he wants to take the tank route here, get his own first back.
Fun, Grant.
Yeah, get your own first back. Get Xander's first or something. Jordan gets the running backs to take over the league. You can come compete with me down in the basement here. We'd love another member. It's not going to be fun trying to lose all season against myself. So I think this is a trade that would make a lot of sense for both parties and definitely something worth considering, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Was there any other trade you thought for Jordan that might make sense? I pulled up one the other day with CeeDee Lamb off of Matt's team. I don't know if I can remember the exact trade off the top of my head here, but it was CeeDee Lamb for, I think, a first, a second, and then like a receiver. If Matt wants to continue to collect some draft picks here, Jordan wants one more really good receiver. I think that makes sense. You could sell Jerry Jeudy pretty easily. And then for running backs too, Alec, I think, is going to want to move Derrick Henry if Alec isn't ready to fully push all the way in this year.
Ask me first, Alec.
Yeah. Alec, you know who I want. But I think there's a lot of moves that Jordan can make. I think he's going to have to acquire a running back and a receiver. The only thing is, if he wants to win. If he doesn't want to win this year, he can stay put, pick 4 players, and set this thing up, I think, pretty well. But if he does want to win this year, he's got every first in the book to play with. And I definitely think he can benefit some of these teams like Grant and Zach, who are really, really low on value. Maybe Xander wants to give you Rashad White for 2 seconds or something.
Maybe.
Never know with Xander.
Never know.
All right. Well, we are at 1 hour. Jacob, any last words today?
Go forth and conquer, Jordan. Go for it.
Yeah. Before we go, we should do predictions. What do you think Jordan's team will finish at this year?
Right now, 5 or 6. If he goes for it, easily championship. He can contend with Will on paper.
I was going to say something like 10-3 regular season. If he does make a move for Eckler, though, I mean, unless it's like you got some heroic performance, it's going to be really hard to beat his team if he gets one of these guys. And now if he gets Madison and Eckler, I don't know, Will. You might be second. But all right. Well, thanks for watching today, everyone. We will be back with our next episode soon. Thank you.
Well done.